Shane White, and this is The Process.
Hey gang, Shane Patrick White here with another edition of The Process and the Speedball Challenge. I started this Speedball Challenge because Speedball Ink ended up sending me a bunch of cool supplies. And so today's supply that I'm going to tear into is the Style B pen nib set. And as I've stated in the earlier episode of the Speedball Challenge, the one thing I noticed is that I probably need to soak the ink or soak the nibs in distilled white vinegar. This will help break down the manufacturing process seal or whatever you want to call it that prevents ink from flowing freely. So I will go through this real quickly, show you what's available so that they do this in every package. They have a little instruction sheet that is a little tough to open. There you go. So they got this instruction sheet on how to use their product. It's amazing. You can do anything from sketching to drawing to calligraphy. And then they show you all the available nib styles. So that is a wonderful thing. So I'm gonna cut through these to get to the nibs, and then I'll tell you a little bit about each of these nibs. The thing about the Style B, if you want to remember them, it's B for balloon, and that means that these round nibs, they're very round, as you can see. They tend to be more for lettering, I think, but I'm going to try to use it in an uncommon way. I like doing that. I like taking atypical tools and use them in new ways. So with each of these, they range from a B0 all the way down to a B3? It's a B4. What's this? Probably, is that another B3? Oh, okay, this is B5, this is B3. So yeah, you have a range from B0 to B5, I think, or B6. Yeah, B0 to B5. So that means there's 6 nibs total. But what I'm gonna do is soak them in white vinegar, which I have right here. So in they go. Usually you can let them sit for an hour. Some people let them sit for a day. And that gets all the, I don't know, whatever manufacturing stuff that goes on them in the process of making them. It's, white vinegar is a light acid, so we'll set those here. I might tear into those in a second, but luckily in my own kit of pen nibs, I actually have a B3 and a what's this one? B1. So I'm gonna do some hand lettering to start off with. Let's see, on the last episode of the sketching episode, I did profiles of each of the nibs, and that's a really good practice to start, is to profile the nibs. That way it gives you a record of the thickness of each nib, what it can do. And I'm just gonna go with black, just because black is beautiful. And I'm not just saying that. Okay, let's use a scrap piece of paper to blot the ink. There you go. So I've used this nib before. It's got a pretty good range. Okay, this is not a very good paper to be using, but now you get a sense of how thick this is, and so I'm like, I don't think I'm gonna be able to do this lettering, but probably I have a better idea that I'll be able to do the larger pieces. So we'll start with a B3, or a B1, excuse me, and see if we can do some hand lettering. Now, I am not a professional hand letterer, so try this at home many times to get better, and you will get better over time. Even in your own handwriting. I want to try something. I'm really eager. I want to tear into this sketch so bad. Oh man, that's cool. It's gonna be a little rough. It's gonna be a little rough. Boom, boom. But what I like to do is when I'm trying to come up with a new way of working with something, I'll try to find the characteristic of the product, and I'll see what it does. How can I use its strengths to my advantage? Well, this is promising. It's going to be a little rougher. It's not going to have that nice cartooning look necessarily, unless I take my time and pull the long lines. So that's kind of cool. Take your time. This nib might be a little too thick to start the lettering. So what I'm gonna do, while those pens are soaking, maybe I'll start with a sketch here and get this, show you how I would take advantage of the nib as it is. Now I prepared several pages of stuff to go over with each of these kits just because I thought it'd be nice to be more prepared and not have to have you wait for me to draw something new or come up with something on the fly that wasn't as strong as it could be. So you really don't get a lot of thicks and thins with this. Usually with the brass backed nib, they're not terribly flexible. I think it's to keep the consistency high. So when you're applying the actual nib or pen to the paper, it gives you the performance that you come to expect. Oh, this is kind of neat. I've not used these nibs in any other way other than what they were originally purposed for, which was lettering. And this is the kind of nib, the smaller one anyway, what you might want to use for lettering comics and comic strips. In fact, there is an actual kit that later on is specifically for cartooning that I will go over. And I even made an adventure strip to sort of put it to use in a proper manner. So that'll be interesting. It took a lot more time than I anticipated because I didn't have the idea. I mean, I had the idea and the story around it, I'll reveal later. But it still took a long time to kind of come up with something on the fly. So now, because I'm doing a thinner or smaller figure, I have to adjust the scale. So now I'm kind of tipping the pen up, so I'm not getting that flat, the flatness of the nib itself. So I'm gonna have to spin this. Now you gotta be careful because there's a lot of ink coming out and it's so easy to smear. This is the part where surgeon's hands come into play. Now, even though this is a sketch, I still want it to turn out reasonably well. A few of my favorite characters: Daredevil, Black Widow. When I first started collecting comics, I think Daredevil was the first character or series that I rapidly started collecting. And I don't know if it's one of those things with when you're starting out something, it's like that first introduction becomes your favorite thing. And I'd been introduced to other comics before, but I think at the age of 12, there's a sincerity about being 12 that you just glom onto things because now they're your own. No one else is making those choices for you. So you start to realize, oh, this is what I like. And what I liked about it is it portrayed New York City and its grittiness. And having grown up in northern New York, I had no idea how rough it was in that region of the state. So I'm a little nervous about getting closer to her face. I think I'm gonna screw it up. But hey, it's a sketch. We're live. This is it. Go for the gusto. One of my early instructors in art school suggested that if you paint an image with if you paint a 4-inch image with a 4-inch brush, you will learn more than if you painted it with a 2-inch brush or anything smaller. And I think it was to say that if you come at something that's mismatched or uncommon, you will find a way. You will find a way to make a mark that makes sense. Now, even though Speedball is not expecting me to do any of these videos or anything, and I'm not necessarily paid to do this, or am I a shill or whatever you want to call it, I've been using Speedball inks since I was very, very young. My mom handed me down her set and kind of stuck with me. It was ink and watercolor that were my first art making tools. So that's been my favorite ever since, and I've been fairly skilled at it, but I haven't necessarily leaned on it. I have a tendency to not trust things that are easy. I always feel like you need to work harder, set your goals a little higher. So unfortunately, that means I'm moving the goalposts at every twist and turn. So this is, this has a look. It's interesting. Let's see if I can get some detail on Daredevil. I knew I had a lot more ink on there than I anticipated, so that was close. It just dropped right off. It'd be nice to be able to sketch with people again at home. Okay, this is gonna get tricky, especially around when I do Black Widow's face. Oh boy, here we go. Here we go. It's weird because I'm not stressing. I don't feel like there's a lot of risk here. It's just like, hey, whatever. If I keep in my head that, yes, this is a sketch. This is not meant for prime time, even though you're watching it live. I don't care. If you care too much, you squeeze it to death, you hug it to death. It becomes too precious. And we're artists, we make stuff all the time. So we can make it again. Here we go. what I try to do is I'll get some of the excess off in other areas of the piece. Certainly helps. So this was just with one nib. I haven't even broken out the other one. Why don't we do that? Why don't I just switch nibs midstream here? Wash this nib off real quick in some water. I could use some Windex. Not that I'm promoting Windex. It has good chemistry to break down materials like this. And so now I'm going to switch to a B3. And I think that's what I'm going to start lettering here with. It makes sense to me. I might even change colors just because I don't want to use up all my black. So let's take this on a little tour, a little run. A lot of ink coming out of that one. Again, you're trying to, you want to make sure, especially if you're lettering, I'll talk about it a little bit more, but you definitely want to match the nib to the scale of what you're going to be executing. I'll try to do a clear, this might be harder than I thought. I might try to do a clear line. Yeah, see, it's just flowing. There's a lot of ink coming out of this. Some of this might just be user error. Again, just because I'm an artist doesn't mean I can do it all. I certainly appreciate lettering. To kind of give you a little bit of a backstory, when I was in grade school, back in the prehistoric age, I think it was first grade, we were learning how to write our alphabet, write correctly the letters of the alphabet, so then we could spell our names, and it was legible. Well, for whatever reason, unbeknownst to me, I apparently did a really good job. So good that the teacher, for whatever reason, wanted me to go around the classroom and help other people. So this idea of helping people, I think, started at a very young age. But like most kids, who can be a little bit cruel, they did not like my help. They thought I was a jerk or something. You know, first grade. Kids change their mind like the weather. But from that point on, I had fairly good handwriting for a number of years. Learned cursive, did well at that. And then I think it was around 10th grade. Not sure how it happened or what happened. But my cursive, I guess you could call it, got sloppy. And by sloppy, it meant that all the letters looked the same and it became illegible. It looked like, pattern-wise, it looked nice, but you couldn't tell an M from an L from an N. It just looked like an ongoing ramble of squiggly lines that made pretty patterns. So I had to come up with something. I was getting demarcations on my homework for having illegible handwriting. It didn't help I was in an honors English class and nobody wanted me to be there. I was an average student and everything else, but I did pretty well in English. So, like every kid, at some point, they believe the teacher has it out for them. I don't think she appreciated me showing up as I did in mid-year, and then I became a C student rather quickly. I'm really liking this. This is a fun look. If I had more of a range, if I get these nibs out of the vinegar, I think I would have a lot of fun here. Okay, so I have a lot of ink. Let's do the moon first. Do the moon, then I'll do her face, and then we'll move on to lettering. I've always liked lettering. I didn't realize how interesting it was to me, and how at an early age I can make money from doing it. I think it was 5th grade, 6th grade, I would write people's names in big fat letters or whatever that just sort of made their name look like a logo. So I'd charge 25 cents, 50 cents, ice cream money. And man, I was fattening up on ice cream. Those are good days. But once everybody got their name done, it was a pretty dry spell. But I think I gravitated towards logo types and fonts, and I wanted to get better at it. And then years later, I heard that if you want to help your draftsman skills, it's probably really good to work on your hand lettering. I mean, just big old letters, and try to do them without lifting up a pencil or a pen or whatever. Okay. That does it there. All right. We get the point. Yeah, I get it. Making jokes, taking names. Okay. Let's get on to lettering. I've been talking about it so much. Now I want to do it. So now let's take the nibs out of the white vinegar with a fancy set of tongs. Now, one of the things I noticed if I don't do this, the ink has trouble sticking to the nib, and that's what you want. You want the nib to hold the ink, not let it slip off. So I'm just gonna pat these dry. Try to shake it off a little bit. Hopefully I don't create a chemical reaction. What's interesting is since I've soaked these, you can see that the steel has turned a darker gray. Yeah, it's a little bit darker. Kind of cool, right? That means it's working. Okay, so probably need to. Wow, that's a big guy. That's going to be interesting. I love that smell of vinegar. It's very, very good. Okay. Like I said, let's try a different color for the lettering. That way it stands out. Could use red, because that's what it's Daredevil's color. So I got a nice red here. And let's try something we haven't used yet. I've got, I'm gonna try the B5. B5, it's interesting. The higher the number, the smaller the nib. So, no, the B5, I think since it's the smallest one, I'll use it for the smallest lettering. Okay, so that makes sense there. I think I could probably I was using a B1 earlier, but I think that might be too aggressive. Let's go with a B2 for the big guy. B5, B2. B3? B3. Let's go B3 for this guy. But if I'm not pulling a long line, I have to to make sure the nib is flat to the paper so it can get the full width of the tip to make that line consistent. Another good trick, or I want to say rule, but it's probably a wise one. Keep your ink and paint on the same side as the hand that's going to be using it. You don't need to be reaching across. Often stuff will drip, and that can be frustrating. That's going in a bad direction. So don't let my lack of skill as a letterer affect your opinion about the materials. I think my painting instructor used to say something to the effect of, an artist who blames his materials, you have to kind of wonder about the artist. All the letterers that I know are cringing right now. Even though this isn't pristine, lettering, if it's consistent, it creates its own look. But it's far from professional. Like anything, it's a skill that is worth practicing. Ooh boy. What the devil? Not easy. It's fighting me. It's fighting me, I don't know why. What? I guess. Even if I tap it, it doesn't seem to come down. Let's draw a couple straight lines. One thing you'll notice is you don't have the same control of dragging a line towards you as you would if you're pulling it away. So keep that in mind. Wow. Struggle. Wait until we get to the style C, where you get to see old-timey lettering from medieval manuscripts, which is something I used to do when I was a kid. And I got okay at it, I guess. I don't remember it being this difficult. Again, it could be the fact that the paper isn't good enough, or I'm making really lame excuses because I'm not good at it. This is definitely its own look. I'm butchering this. Makes me wonder if the black would flow better. I think I'm gonna go switch back to the black after this. I think it might be a pigment thing. Like I said, I'm not familiar with this stuff. So I'm doing the best I can. Even pressure, and I can't get an even line. Oof, boy. Struggle is real, people. Maybe that's the only way to do it, is just to pull it towards you. Okay. Enough of those shenanigans. As you can see, this is a bit of a challenge. That's the B2. What I might do is I might switch back. In the break, I realized that maybe I should try the other ink, the Speedball Superblack India ink, instead of the calligraphy ink, to see if it was really me or if it was really the ink itself. And went through several letters and numbers with a lot better results. So I usually have this kludgy mess of ink all ready to go in a old marker cap because I wanted a very narrow opening to keep the ink from drying out too quickly. So here's a I think this is a B4 that I'm going to use on this section. So let's give that a whirl. Now the Speedball Superblack Ink flows really, really well. So I'm not exactly sure what the calligraphy ink is for. It might be for the larger nibs to do more decorative style of lettering. I don't know, but I will try them again with another set of nibs later on. Now you can see I'm getting a lot more consistent line weight, which is ideal. That's what I remember being able to letter like. So all this other mess beforehand is clearly not the best representation of my skill set. Again, I'm not saying I'm a great letterer, but I did feel like I was struggling a little bit more than I should have. So yes, sometimes you can blame your tools, but be careful. It's a slippery slope.
As always, thanks for watching. And also, don't forget to subscribe to The Process. And please, if you have more questions, feel free to leave a comment below.